Shall we start? Welcome to Two Girls, One Pod. This is the episode where there are actually two girls, and I'm one of them. Aren't you lucky? The other one this week is Sarah Hayden. Welcome.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
Sarah is a social worker and a mother to Chloe Hayden, who you may know. She's a disability activist. She's an actor on Heartbreak High, and she's a massive animal lover, and I adore her, and she's amazing, and she's won awards. And we met at the Anne Juliet premiere.
We did.
And I saw Chloe and was like, oh, I love this kid. Like, she's incredible. I'm going to go up and say hello. And you were with her. And I had watched her Instagram and you were just so wonderful. And meeting you, I immediately felt an infinity with you.
A connection.
A connection.
Yeah, totally.
And I knew that we were going to get along really well. I've had people say, are you going to have Chloe on the podcast? And I'm like, I'm going to have Mum on. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay. You know, they're like, they feel bad that they were like, you know, and I'm like, I'll have Chloe on eventually, yes, but Sarah is who I want. So I'm going to have her first. So I'm really glad that you're here.
That's so funny because I remember meeting you at Anne Juliet and I connected with you immediately. We were chatting. I think you came over and chatted to Chloe and I said to Chloe, she's my new best friend. Yes. I just knew straight away that we were just going to get along.
Yes, yeah, and you were just so, like, you looked so stunningly beautiful like you do today, and
thank you.
You had all your glitter on and I loved that, and you've been nicknamed Glitter Tits, is that right?
I have, correct. I think it was from that actual night. I think Chloe has shared, I think it was the same week or around that time that we also went to the Harry Styles concert, Chloe and I, and of course we were glittered up to the hilt. And
that's when I first saw you.
Oh, was it? Yeah, we were all over the newspapers and everything. Yeah.
I was already following Chloe, but it would have been, when I first started noticing you.
Yeah, so we were both, I was covered in glitter. I said to Chloe, I think I went out to her and said, how slay can we be for Harry? And she's like, Mum, there is no slay that's enough slay, so slay up. I said, so can I cover myself in glitter? And she's like, do it. And so I literally did. I totally, pretty much dipped my body in glitter. And then it was, I think, about a week later that we went to the Anne Juliet premiere. And I said to Chloe, this would be pretty slay as well, wouldn't it? She's like, yes, this will be really extra and really slay. She's like, glitter up, Mum. So I did. And we went in and Chloe and Em Rusciano are good friends. And I walked up to Em and gave her this huge hug. And then Chloe and Em were just chatting away. And I looked at Em and I was like, oh, Em's got glitter all over her tits. And I said to her, oh, you got the memo. It's glitter tits night. And she looked down and she was like, babe, I didn't put glitter on my tits. You just transferred them to me when you gave me that hug. So we did like a boob to boob.
Oh, I love it.
Glitter hug. And I think it was her that then called me,
Glitter Tits.
Glitter Tits.
That's
because I was like transferring it around to people. So there you go. There's me and my stupidity thinking that she'd actually also glittered up, but no, apparently not. I just transferred my glitter from my boobies to her boobies.
Well, you're like a cute fairy glitter mother.
Isn't that beautiful? Just spreading the glitter all over the tits.
It's better than being known as the STI of the craft world.
Oh, totally. Absolutely.
That shit you just can't get rid of.
You can't get rid of. Glitter tits is
no matter what, you just see it. You know, this is a really sad thing, but I keep thinking about Cal Wilson's house and how, because she loved to do craft and she had so much, you know, so many tiny little remnants of when you do craft. She did these amazing
bits everywhere.
You know, so I keep thinking of her son and her husband.
Finding little bits of her craft everywhere.
No matter what you do going forward, that house is so calified. So
I love that.
It's
calified.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
But you know, it's going to be such a juxtaposition of feeling for them to just keep this reminder, this constant, you know, glittery reminder, which will be so beautiful and so heartbreaking all at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh, but yes, glitter, you, good, here, wonderful, thank you. You're a social worker.
I am.
So how did you get into that?
It was something I did later in life. I was actually in my very early 40s when I went back to uni and decided to do a social work degree.
What did you do before?
So very back in the time, I used to do acting and modelling when I was younger.
Of course you did.
So
should have been doing modelling. I can imagine what you look like.
Thank you. So beautiful. And I sort of flitted between, there wasn't really that much I was doing. I did a nursing and midwifery degree and realised after delivering a few babies that I really didn't want to have my arm stuck up people's vaginas for the rest of my life.
Yep. It is for some, not for others.
Loved the nurturing, caring side of it. Arms up inside people's bodies and bodily fluids. No, it just wasn't. No, absolutely. That's exactly what it is. I didn't realise, despite having had babies of my own, that bit slipped my mind. So it was actually while I was homeschooling Chloe. So as you probably know, I homeschooled Chloe right through high school, and I was like, if I'm going to be sitting here unable to work for the next few years, just being her teacher all day, every day, which was like the epitome for me of a nightmare. It was not something I ever dreamt of doing.
Yep.
So glad I did it for Chloe, but not what I ever anticipated. And I thought, well, if I'm going to be sitting here basically doing high school again, which is what I was pretty much doing, I may as well do something. And I had briefly studied psychology when I first left school, did that for a year, realised it was all maths and statistics and hated it.
Yeah.
Flitted in and out of a few other things. ADHD later on, diagnosis accounted for a lot of that in hindsight. But actually decided to do a social work degree. So while I was sitting with Chloe studying, I was studying alongside her. So I did my social work degree. Yes, I was pretty much did my high school diploma with Chloe while doing my social work degree. And we had fostered for many, many years, so we had a lot of exposure to sort of social workers over the years with that. Then our youngest two children were adopted from the intercountry adoption program from Taiwan.
Right, inter-country adoption program.
Yeah, so our youngest two are both born in Taiwan.
Right.
And so over
you
the
got
years...
4 kids?
5, yep. So I'd had
5
a lot...
kids. Chloe's the first.
Chloe's the first, yep.
And then
I've got Gemma. Yes. And
now
then
Gemma wasn't on the compass.
She wasn't.
She was.
Gemma
so
is
she's
my
more private
girl. She's also studying a social work degree. Love her to bits. She's the most incredible human, but a lot more
reserved,
quiet and reserved, and I don't need to be in your limelight. Thank you very much. So it's funny because you often see articles written that Chloe's got 3 siblings, but it's like, no, she's actually got 4 because she's just quietly in the background doing her thing. Amazing person she is. And then Hunter, who, as you know, is sort of getting his own little limelight at the moment.
Which we're going to talk about later.
Yes, and then our youngest two, who are both adopted from Taiwan. So
are they twins?
No, they're not. They were adopted separately, a few years apart. Through the same program, but different orphanages and different families.
So you were fostering?
We fostered 55 kids over a period of 5 years, 55 really high needs kids.
Oh, thank you so much. You're amazing, just amazing. The foster system is so incredibly tough.
It is
anyone can
incredibly
foster,
difficult,
but people don't.
Yes, and it's not the children that make it tough; it's the system that makes it bloody hard. There's so much I could say about that, but so I think over the years I'd sort of been exposed a lot to social workers, and then with Chloe's autism diagnosis, and I don't know, I think everything just led me. I think you're sort of born a social worker.
Yeah.
I'd always been a bit of a social justice warrior, and it just fit, and I started doing it and was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so, for the last 6 years, I've been working as a social worker, primarily in the sort of autism space with families and also complex mental health and justice. And I love it. It's a bloody hard job, but I really love it.
Can I ask you, with the system, knowing what you knew and then going into it, did you go into it because you knew you could make a change, you wanted to make a change, not knowing you could? And have you been able to make a change? Is it still?
I think so, yeah. I think what a lot of people don't have that I'm lucky to have, and this is the biggest thing I admire most about Chloe, is having a voice, being that advocate and not being afraid to stand up. I'm gobsmacked daily at how many people just feel so voiceless and quietened and not able to fight systems or stand up for themselves, whether it's, with doctors or hospitals or justice systems, or, there's so many people who are oppressed and just don't feel brave enough or strong enough to actually use their voice and advocate for themselves. So I just see myself as having that role to do that. And I think, that's the most important thing. And, it always amazes me that obviously for some people it comes naturally, and other people it's just like, wow, you don't have that understanding that you actually can, speak up for yourself and stand up for yourself.
That's so wonderful. You know, I used to be a living carer for a man with Down syndrome and type 1 diabetes. And he actually comes from a really wealthy family in Balmain. And his mum, who is a psychologist at Long Bay Jail, like she is such a fascinating woman.
Yeah, amazing.
I loved my conversations with her because she was just... You couldn't shock her with anything. Yeah. That's what I loved the most. Yeah. She looked really conservative, but she was far from it.
And done that.
The one really interesting thing I found with her, because like they bought Tom a house because of the assisted living situation was, you know, they didn't want to put him in a group home, that kind of thing, right? So they wanted him in a group home-esque. Yeah. So they had like an able-bodied adult on either side. Yes. And that's what I was one of them. Yeah. So we had 3 rooms you know, in a house, and it was a wonderful living situation. But I remember asking her one day, because she just constantly was getting these grants awarded to her. Tom was getting them awarded, and Tom was, you know, he would get all of these things that they could afford from the government. And I had a chat with her one day about it, and she said, the reason I apply for everything, and she would get rejected a lot just based on they reject a lot. And the forms were so incredibly hard to fill out. She said, I fill them all in and I continually apply for these things because, not because we can't afford them. She said, I pay them forward. Like I, you know, make sure the money goes somewhere to someone, you know. She said, because there are people who can't read or write properly, there are people who have a language problem, and they design these forms
100% to make it as hard as possible.
That you will give up halfway
NDIS
through the
is the
form.
same, Centrelink is the same, Justice is the same. All of those forms are not designed for people who are illiterate, English as a second language, or even just, you know, to give up OSA. And the intercountry adoption system is the same. It's like we call it the Hunger Games. Thousands of people apply every year, and 1 or 2 get through to the end, and it's the hoops and the paperwork and the status, you know, just everything. And so
it is the Hunger Games. Who makes it to the end? We literally
call it the Hunger Games, everything. And NDIS is the same.
Same. Well, that was
Centrelink
Tom,
is the same. Like dozens of pages to fill out a disability support form, and it's like most people, it's so difficult.
They depend on us not being able to
totally. Most people just go, it's too hard, I won't do it. And I come across families every day where it's like, you know, have you applied for the NDIS, or have you applied for the Centrelink DSP, or whatever it is? And that's literally there. I looked at it, it's just too hard. And most people just go, it's too hard, I give up. And so, you know, who knows how many people are out there that are missing out on things that they should be getting, whatever it is, because it's just too hard.
Well, she would apply for things that Tom could have but hadn't even been done before. You know, no one had ever been awarded that particular fund, and she would just go hard on it to set the precedent, to say it is needed. People are using it because so they wouldn't go and say, well, let's cut that because no one needs it. And she was a big one on that, and she would just, she said, I've got the time and
the intelligence and the voice
to do it. And she would help people fill in their forms and things. And I was like, I never realised until then just how incredibly difficult they make it.
Absolutely. For the very people who need it the most, and who are the people who can't
need it. Who need it more than ever. Just going into Centrelink is such a debilitating situation. Like you go out so disheartened, so angry, so sad and upset and frustrated.
And now they can't even see someone. It's like you're told to go and sit on the computer and do it. And it's like, how is somebody, you know, who struggles with technology and language, and how are they going to be able to do it?
Yeah, I have to say that watching Tom, for the time I lived with him, it went from a Labor government to a Liberal government, and I watched the changes overnight happen. Like with Gillard, she did so many amazing things with the NDIS, and then it was like he got funding, and then it was was incredible watching, and then the Libs got in, and wow, did the big changes really start happening then. Let's go back to Chloe. How was it with the diagnosis for Chloe for you?
It was devastating, not so much because I was devastated that she'd been diagnosed autistic. She was 13. She'd been struggling for years. You know, anyone who's read her book or heard her speak would know that, you know, her childhood was really tough. And, you know, she was lucky. She had a really supportive family. You know, we were able to try out private schools and public schools and Christian schools and Catholic schools and, you know, every environment we could. And she just could not fit in anywhere. Her mental health was shocking. She was, battling depression and anorexia. And, she finally got a diagnosis of autism at the age of 13 after a school teacher in a new school I'd taken her to just came to me and said, have you ever thought about taking her to an educational psychologist? And I was like, what for? She was so smart.
Yes.
She was so incredible in so many ways.
She would
and
have
so
just missed
quirky. And I thought, autism was like Rain Man or, I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
It was like 13 years ago. It was just...
Young girl,
it was,
autistic.
it was just so
very different.
Foreign.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was just that, that realisation that I'm like, oh my God, I've got this, my firstborn child who I loved more than anything in the world, who had struggled for so many years, and she had something that was diagnosed almost immediately from, a specialist in autism. And I was like, how did I not know? My dad's a doctor. My mum was a nurse. I'm an intelligent person who'd been to university, and I'm thinking in my family, if none of us in our family were able to go, maybe, there's something wrong with her, she's autistic, it was awful. I just had this like whole kind of flashback of 13 years of going, what would I have done differently? What support could we have given her? And in hindsight, there's probably nothing I would have actually done differently except for pulled her out of school years earlier, because I was the biggest advocate for her, and we found ourselves changing. I think we just automatically adjusted everything to what she needed without even realising. And now that I know and I work as a professional in the space, everything I was doing was what you should be doing anyway. Thankfully for me, that just came, but through natural parenting and loving her so much. But it was just awful to think that, she'd had all these struggles and we'd got no support from any school, no empathy for anything. And, as soon as you've got a diagnosis, you can get that understanding and support and empathy. But after that, you're just a neurotic parent or your kid's just an asshole,
Yes.
But if you've got a diagnosis, it's like, oh, okay, we kind of legally have to give support or adjustments or whatever. So, for me, it was a shock. I was like, she just to me didn't seem like she ticked any box for autism. And in hindsight, when I started learning about girls, autistic girls, hello, she ticks every single box. And
so that's why you obviously said that's why we never picked up on it.
Oh, totally.
It was just,
I just thought it was autism was boy and autistic is boys. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think that probably also fed me, to go down the social work path. And I work primarily with, autism families and advocating and supporting and educating them. And, Chloe and I do conferences, and I'm in the process of writing a book, parenting autistic kids. And, I have such a passion now to explain, and so many families sort of go, what's the point of getting a diagnosis? And I'm like, this is the point of getting a diagnosis. So we understand our kids. Other people understand that, they do have, troubles fitting in with things. They do need support and adjustments, and there's really simple things you can do, but that's what they need. So, yeah, for me, I think it was just, I was devastated just because I just felt I'd let her down for 13 years. I just thought, far out, I've been, we've been pulling her out of schools and trying new schools and watching this kid just fall apart, even though we knew she was so incredible and so smart and so creative and so brilliant. She just was not surviving. And, I think for me, my only regret was that I didn't pull her out of school earlier, because that was killing her.
Yeah.
And, when her psychologist said to me a few weeks after she was diagnosed and we were sort of going back for a bit of catch-up support and education around it, she said to me, pull her out of school and homeschool her. And I was like, hell no, I am not a homeschooling mum. Like, to me, I was like, homeschooling mums are weird, bird-watching families that are,
hippies, that's what we used to think they
not.
were. Well,
totally.
that's all they did.
Absolutely.
Not all they did, but
that
they
was
were the
my,
ones.
And she just looked at me and she goes, well, you either pull her out or you're going to lose her. And it was just like, I'm pulling her out. And it was the best thing I ever did.
Was it just her, or did you pull any
No,
others?
just her. No, just her. No. The others didn't want to. They loved school. They were thriving at school. There was no problems at school. But for Chloe, it was like, she was fine when she was at home or not at school. She could just be Chloe, but school was just, she was tormented and bullied and just didn't, she hated it, just didn't fit in. And, it's fair to say that literally overnight, by pulling her out and telling her you never ever have to go back into that environment, she just blossomed.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Just instant.
Isn't that wonderful? Yeah. Have you always been in the same house?
No, God, no. We've moved around so much. So
around the same area?
No, we've been all over the place. So with my husband's job, we had moved from...
What does he do?
He's now the State Secretary for the Australian Workers Union, but he was in construction and tunnelling for many, many years.
Okay.
So we'd sort of moved around from the Mornington Peninsula to Melbourne City to the Yarra Valley. We were based down in Portland for a couple of years. So we had moved around quite a bit anyway. But even within those moves, we were sort of trying different schools in those places. So, I think she'd been to something like 10 different schools or something. And it was just after a while, it's like, is it the school that's the problem, or is it actually that my child is just never, ever going to fit in a school? And some of these kids are just never going to fit into a school.
Yeah. So many kids don't fit into school.
Schools are awful.
Awful. I so wish that I hadn't been forced to go to a normal school.
Yeah.
Okay, so when did you move to your current home? Like,
so
'cause
we've
you've got
been,
the farm.
So we've been in our house for coming up to 8 years. So it's the longest we've ever been, and we're not going anywhere.
Yeah,
we
you're happy there.
Absolutely love it.
Because Chloe's bought near you.
She has. She's bought just down the road from us, so we are absolutely not. And my husband is now stable. He won't be moving anywhere. His office is in Melbourne City, so he drives to the city every day. And that's his forever job. And we love where we are. We're rural, but we're close to the beach, and we've got a fabulous setup and
that's a perfect
big
rural
swimming pool. We've put everything in the home that's like everyone calls it the Hayden Resort.
Great.
Everything is in there, and it's like we are never going. It's our dream home. Love it. And especially now that Chloe's bought near us, it's like, well,
it's just
this
perfect.
is where we're staying.
Yeah, and she's getting married next year.
She is in January. She gets married, yes, just down the road from home, which will be wonderful.
So wonderful.
Yeah,
I bet
super
you can't
exciting.
wait. So you have ADHD as well.
I do.
So did that come along the diagnosis of yourself from Chloe?
So a few years ago...
Or you like me watching TikToks?
Well, no, it wasn't. It was actually before the TikTok phase of ADHD, which, is a really interesting thing.
Tell me, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. I think that what it's actually done, a little bit like girls with autism, is it's just... I think shown publicly a lot more information about it that people didn't know. Again, ADHD in boys, is little boys jumping from couch to couch and spinning on their head in the classroom and, throwing pencils at people. And it's this, for me, years ago, if someone had said ADHD, that's what I would have thought of. Yes. The same as autism in boys. That it was very much kind of a little boy model and almost stereotype of, oh my God, he's got ADHD. You didn't even know what it was. You just knew it was the crazy kid who was doing dumb shit.
ADD back then, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it was actually a few years ago, and Chloe had been, I think she'd been doing a conference with a psychologist or something, and they actually said to her, are you diagnosed ADHD? And she said, no, just autistic. And they said, you need to go and get an ADHD diagnosis. And so Chloe spoke to me about it, and I was like, okay. So we booked her in for a psychiatric assessment for ADHD. Mm-hmm. And this was only a few years ago, so years after her autism diagnosis. Okay. So I sat in there with her getting the diagnosis done, and it's a couple of hours of history and questions and everything. Yeah. And I sat there just going,
answering them
literally,
yourself.
I got 100% on that exam. The first one I've ever got 100% on. I sat there and I went, yes. And I actually said at the end to the doctor, I said, I am 100%.
All of those things. Like, I actually said, can I get a piece of paper as well? And he was like, no, you're going to have to get your own one. I tried to get a 2-for-1 deal, but he wouldn't let me do it. What a shit.
But I just, it was like, oh my God. But again, in our family, that was just normal.
Yes.
And, for me, very much like I see, autism in Chloe, I see it as actually a really positive thing. Yes. I think ADHD is incredibly, creative and energetic and impulsive and, and daring and brave, like the stuff, the shit that I've done in my life. People look at me, this, like, my life is like a book. People go, you wouldn't even believe the stuff that you've done and been involved in. And, I'm the most spontaneous person when it comes to just about anything, like it's just nuts, but it's really good.
Yeah.
And
it works for you.
It works. And, so I was like, I'm actually going to get an official diagnosis just because I was interested. I think it gives you a lot of understanding of yourself. It also gives you, for me, it was actually almost a little bit sad. I reflected right back onto my childhood and, I really struggled, and I talk a bit about that in my book that I'm writing about how, I really struggled at school enormously despite, again, I was, intelligent and capable, but I, everything is last minute. I struggled so much with friendships. I didn't know how to do, friendships. I was such a chameleon, sort of flitting between people going, I want to fit in and I don't know what to do.
Yes, me too.
And and so I'd sort of become the goth girls or the cool girls or literally. And so I never had friends and I was known as a try-hard and I was because I was like, I'm trying to, I don't know, I'm kind of watching these people going, you all get it. And I'd walk out of class before lunch going, everyone's kind of got their groups and sitting down and I don't know what to do right up until year 12. I just had no idea. Oh. And, I would lose my work or forget about work or, everything that I looked back on and was like, wow, I really struggled with boyfriends and relationships and pressure and, I kind of looked back and was like, wow, that's, it gave me the ability, I think, to sort of forgive myself and go, and also shed a bit of a tear and go grieve that, that I hadn't. But it also, it gave me a good understanding of what I'm like now. And, I do see it as mostly really positive, but it gives you some insight into the kind of person you are. And perhaps, I think I've started about 10 degrees and pulled out like that. My HECS debt was unbelievable because I'd just kind of go, I'm going to do, whatever, and then start doing, go, no, actually, because I hadn't actually thought it through. Like, how did I not think about the fact that I was going to have my hands in orifices of women's bodies until the third year? I think I just signed up one night and was like, I'll do nursing and midwifery. And then I kind of get almost to the end. It's like, nah. And then this, and then this, and then this, like I was going to do beauty therapy and criminal psychology and, like it's just, and it's so spontaneous where I just book,
Yes.
But I also see that as wonderful because I know other people that have been stuck in a job they hate for 30 years or a house they hate for 30 years, whereas I'm like, no, just sell the house and move and buy another one.
Yes.
Like I'll sign up for an international holiday or adopt a dog or foster more kids or, the amount of times my husband came home and he's like, who are these extra 3 kids? Oh, they rang me today and asked if we wanted another 3. And he's like, babe, we've got 6.
Yeah.
I was like, I know, but
what's
it's
3
fun.
more?
What's 3 more? Who cares?
Exactly.
So I, for the most part, I see it as I think it's a wonderful thing. I'm not medicated. Chloe's not medicated. I think for the most part, medication dulls, a lot of the, it might help with some stuff, but I think it also dulls a lot of the spark and creativity. If you understand yourself and know how your brain works.
Well, the diagnosis would come with explanations and not necessarily needing the medication.
Yep.
But if you do need the medication, it's there.
Absolutely. And for some people, it's amazing. For others, it's more just understanding how you work.
Yes.
And if you're about to do something really big and spontaneous, maybe just running it past somebody that, that knows you and loves you and is like, babe, maybe that's the ADHD. Maybe don't do that one,
Incredible. I find the ADHD medication really interesting as well because I've had a few friends be late diagnosed and they use it for certain times.
Yes.
And that's so
if
wonderful.
You know you've got a massive assignment due or a big day at work.
Writers, so
you've got to focus and then other days. And that's
writing done.
Exactly right.
So perfect.
I hear most people say the same. It's not something you just get up every morning and do. It's like when I've got to hyper focus or do something, that's when I'll do it. But the other days I'm fine just to be me and it's okay.
Yes, and I'm really glad that it's not a drug that you have to take and it builds up and it builds up and you have to take it every morning until, then you've got to up the dosage because your tolerance has gotten, I love all that kind of stuff. Totally. That you can go away from it and have a break and be your ADHD
the sparkly,
self.
Glittery self.
When Chloe was diagnosed later in life, did you find, what's the percentages and everything of autism and ADHD?
Very strong strong correlation, yes. And,
it is.
It's interesting because Chloe sort of didn't know that she had ADHD, but she now realises that probably a lot of the stuff that she struggles with the most is probably more ADHD related than autism related.
So that's just so much learning.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. And that often they're obviously,
learning.
And often they're quite polar opposite in what they'll want you to do or what you automatically do. So it's sort of, again, for her trying to work out, what it is and how to live with both of them together, which can be quite difficult. But it is there's a very strong correlation between both. It's very common that if you've got one, you'll have the other.
And is that in both genders?
Yes.
Or sexes, I should say?
Yeah. But
okay. Yeah, right. Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah. And I think the problem with ADHD now, like you said, the TikTok trend, it's become people are like, ADHD. But I think what it's done is actually just it's that stereotype. And it's like Chloe, her role as Quinny in Heartbreak and her talking about it, there was a massive influx of, girls getting diagnosed because, again, you know, it's that stereotype that people didn't realise they were autistic or their daughter was autistic because they didn't realise that was autism. And then they're kind of watching Heartbreak or watching Chloe or reading her book and going, oh, my gosh, that's so different to what I thought.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same with ADHD.
Yes.
All these women who are doing, you know, TikToks and I think it's more getting the information out there that people are going, like I did when I sat in Chloe's assessment, because I was a bit shocked when they said, Chloe said, I need to get an ADHD assessment. I was like, you've never been a couch jumper or a, you know, like a crazy
what we thought
kid.
It was.
But it's not at all, you know.
Well, you're not a couch jumper and you found out
Definitely
you had it
not.
as well.
Exactly right.
I agree.
I say for me and, you know, most people, you know, when your computer, which my computer always has 150 tabs open at the top.
Tabs, yeah.
Always. And my husband and my son come in and they're like, get rid of some of the tabs.
Yeah.
That's my brain all the time.
Right.
So I will literally be halfway through an email and then I'll go, all right, I've got to email this person. And so I'll open up another email and I'll jump to that one. And I will have, you know, 150 tabs open at once. And that's just how my brain works. And it's not necessarily bad. Like I can multitask like a boss.
Yeah.
But I also have to sometimes say to myself, okay, no, stop, do this. This is important. You know, I've got lists all the time, prioritise, because I will, you know, get up off my computer and walk to put a load of washing on. And as I walk past, I'm like, I'll do this and then I'm doing that and then I'm doing that. And an hour later, I've done 73 more tasks on the way to do that. Yeah. And I've still got to come back and do the email.
That's so ADHD,
so ADHD.
But that's not all that's ADHD.
No.
Like there's so many different types.
So many different.
I agree with you with the TikTok trend. Like people really shat on it.
Yes.
And, you know, they got
It's almost embarrassing to say you've got ADHD. It's like,
do you? Or, oh, God, here we go with the ADHD. Like, have you got ADHD because you've been watching TikTok?
Yeah.
You self-diagnosed.
Self-diagnosed, yeah.
You know, I don't believe in self-diagnosis because of, you know, you're not an expert, but you are an expert at yourself.
Totally.
So if you have information, then you can, I guess, a little bit diagnose and then go and present to an actual expert and say, I have an expert in me, you have an expert in this, let's put it together. And is it, you know, I just think it's wonderful that all this TikTok stuff is happening because it's really helping. Of course, there's always going to be downsides to everything and there's going to be, but especially in this country, we have that tall poppy thing that
absolutely
we just love to shit on
people.
On people doing, I guess, doing well or doing anything, like being positive in a way. It's like, oh, don't get too full of yourself.
Yeah. Or owning something, you know, like one of the things Chloe gets all the time is, you know, oh, you're faking your autism. And it's like, mate.
Does she?
Yeah, all the time. Because she, you know, again, she doesn't fit their little narrow stereotype of what. And it's like, firstly, it's an incredible insult to the autism professional that we paid like, you know, several $1,000s 13 years ago over a period of months of assessments to get. It's bloody hard to get an autism diagnosis, can I say, and really expensive.
Yes,
and
which frustrates the shit out of me.
Again, you know, for the very families who need it the most. And, you know, the diagnostic criteria and the process, and it was actually the, you know, Department of Educational psychologist who specialised in autism who was the one who diagnosed Chloe. So, you know, it's really rude to question her, you know, her.
Well, yeah, especially if you don't have like your own medical.
Yeah, exactly right. This
degree.
is just some random, you know, keyboard warrior. But I think it comes back to that tall poppy. It's like, well, Chloe's doing well. You know, she's Quinny. She's doing this. She's doing that. You know, or you can't be autistic, or you don't. You know, or you're just trying to make it up, like, you know, the TikTok kind of trend.
Yes,
I think people
you're just jumping on a bandwagon.
It's like, well, not really. If you had have seen, you know, the struggles that she's had, you know, people see the bright, shiny Chloe. They don't see the struggles she still has.
Yeah,
you know, it's still not easy for her. But it's also not like she was just an overnight success. And they haven't seen the years of anorexia that she battled and the mental health issues and the school bullying and the torment and the torture that she went through. And the slow build up to get to where she is, and, you know, and the advocacy work that she's doing, and they have the audacity to get on and, you know.
I would just cut and paste that Compass show, that episode for her, and I would just cut and paste it to every trial. Just go, just watch that, come back to me.
Yeah.
And because not only does it show, you know, how autistic she is, but it shows her advocacy, what she's doing,
absolutely.
the talking, the
and that to her is the most important thing. It's more important than fame or acting or money, and that's what she wants to do. She wants to use her platform to be able to explain. And, you know, I've spoken to psychologists who are autism diagnostic professionals who say to me they're amazed at the amount of women and girls that are coming in and, you know, that are getting diagnosed, and they're saying, oh, I've just read Chloe's book, or I saw Chloe's talk, or I watched Heartbreak High. And that to me is amazing, because these people, we all have a right to know who we are and what, you know, what we are. Like when I found out the ADHD, it's just like, I know who I am and where I come from and what, you know, more about me. So it's not about funding, or, you know, people aren't getting diagnoses to get money or to get famous, or it's like, no, I need to know who I am, you know, where I come from, how does my brain work.
And now you're a perimenopausal woman
as
well.
Oh, my God. Yes, we found out this week. Yes, you educated me on so many perimenopausal symptoms that I didn't even know about.
That's it. And that's another TikTok that you'll have to start going down, get your algorithms going, because these are women and specialists that are on TikTok. This is one thing I love about social media so much, is that the smart people who have seen how incredibly important and effective social media is, they've gone, oh, this gives me an opportunity at first to have a 3-minute talk to now go up to 10 minutes. You know, as you go through becoming more followers, your time limit goes further.
Okay,
So they have these, and obviously they've really cornered the market, and especially people like the ADHD, but these specialists, like, to begin with, because TikTok was around really and got me really going during COVID. The COVID fact checkers and the lockdown fact checkers, like all the really smart people, they were like, all of this mis and disinformation that's out there, that is coming through social media, and it is getting the ears. So what we need to do is to be those people as well, with the truth,
the positive,
with the facts,
the honest,
with the information that can arm people to come, you know, to argue back. And that's when I found the same with perimenopause. We're just not talking about it enough at all. Like, we're starting to now, but the amount of information,
such a taboo
it has
subject. You know, you don't talk about that.
Women's reproductive rights, women's reproductive issues are so underfunded and undercared about because
they're all men, doctors and
we weren't even allowed
and obstetricians, and
we could study medicine but never perform medicine. Like we couldn't perform surgery, but we could study it. It's just incredible that that's all.
And still the majority of gynaes and obstetricians are males, you know. You know, we were taught what was normal and what's not, and, you know, and also, again, that myth of, you know, perimenopausal or menopausal women are old, you know, dried up old hags and grumpy and, you know, and it's like, no, we can still be hot and perimenopausal or menopausal or postmenopausal.
Exactly. Well, all the studies that they're doing now is just, you know, we're getting to the results stage. So you got your 10-year study, your 20-year studies there. We're seeing the results of those now. The UK has actually been studying this stuff for a little bit longer than we have. So we've got their results. I was just reading an article yesterday about how the government is going to start bringing campaigns for employers and companies to say we need more education about menopause and perimenopausal women, because these are the ones who, just as they're hitting their strides in their jobs, in their careers, like really knowing what they're doing and being able to impart wisdom on, you know, people who know less than them in the workforce, they're leaving because they can't stop the hot flashes. They can't remember things. They, you know, all of these things. So they really want to start this onslaught of getting companies to understand that woman that is not dealing so well at work, what can we do as a company to help them and keep them in the company? Rather than, it's something like 30% women leave.
Wow.
Yeah. And they are so needed in so many different industries. Suicides go up, and
divorces go through the roof.
Domestic violence, family violence goes up by about 20 to 30% during perimenopause.
Is that women to men?
I think it's
just in general.
are pushing, like they're less inclined to put up with bullshit, or they'll fight back a little bit, which unfortunately doesn't end well for some. So, if we start talking about those kind of things and us as a really important, integral part of an economy, like it costs the UK $5 billion a year to lose the women in that part of their life.
Menopausal women.
Isn't that incredible? Just changing an office policy where women don't have to wear uncomfortable shoes or stockings, like nylon materials, where they can wear really comfortable loose clothing to keep them comfortable in their positions, even though they're in a corporate world. Because, they can't wear the clothes anymore. Just cannot put on those kind of clothes anymore.
Fake synthetic hot fabrics and
like just that one little thing. And you think no one has even thought of that. But that could be just the one reason a woman has left her CEO job. Nothing else. Just, I can't wear those clothes anymore. And, having a hot flush. And then we start talking, about the dreadful misinformation and lies that came from the HRT. They've even rebranded HRT to MRT, or is it, MRT, menopause replacement therapy.
Yeah, right.
Because of what that one study that gave HRT to women who then they found there was a correlation and causation for breast cancer. Yeah. And it turns out that one study was doing women over 60. They were already in menopause, had been for years, and were at that age of life where breast cancer is on the rise, more prevalent.
Yeah.
And no one questioned it. Yeah. Everyone just overnight stopped taking their HRT. Yeah. Overnight, doctors stopped and still won't. Some doctors won't even talk to you about HRT because they think you might sue them if you end up with cancer.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to talk about it.
Yeah, how frustrating is that? If you have a doctor, just anyone listening, if you have a doctor that will not talk to you about perimenopause or will not talk to you about the treatment that comes with replacing your hormones that are depleting from your body at a rapid rate, get a new GP. Yeah. And just keep asking. Yeah. Ask and talk to everyone. Talk to your daughters especially about what's happening to your body.
And your friends, start opening up to women around you as well, because chances are, women have been suffering in silence or, like we shared over, the other day, often you don't even know what symptoms, that could be or are related to it. And you're like, oh, wow, that's me. I didn't realise that, Yes. And I think we were saying, we both fangirled over Alison Dado when, we're both the same age, and she was the Dolly cover girl.
Yes.
She was our little, our icon at a teenage age, and she's just written her book on, going through menopause, and it is just so lovely to see, beautiful women who are, successful and in the public eye, who are opening up on their struggles and opening up the conversations about it, and talking about what that is so that everyone else can start talking about it and not be ashamed. It's a normal part of what we go through.
It is so normal. Yeah. That's the shame that comes with it. You must be quiet. You must be silent. Drives me, Barney as it would. Miff Warhurst also has done a show for the ABC. It's very educational, and she interviews Alison Bray on it, goes into her home, and it's just the more we, just like Chloe, the more we have people in the public eye talking about things that are affecting them, the more people are being seen, the more they're like, oh, that's me, that's happening to me. They're seeing
and that's okay.
themselves
that's not
on
abnormal.
a screen and, oh, this is wonderful. But, talking to girlfriends about things that, I found that everything I've ever really found out about myself has been through having chats with girlfriends. I found out I was low in iron because my girlfriend said, I think you might be iron deficient. Go and get that checked. And my iron was 9. Yeah, wow. But it was a girlfriend that had said, oh, you're flooding blood out, so you're probably losing a lot of iron. So go and get that checked first. I had an iron infusion a couple of days later and was like,
better. This is what
that's a girlfriend.
It's like to feel normal.
Yeah. But, if you don't have your mother to talk to about it, talk to your whoever's. But if you still do have your mother, talk to them, ask them about it, and talk to your daughters about it. If young girls or women who have mothers that maybe aren't the kind to talk about it to them.
Yeah.
You know, you might have your daughter's friends who either don't have a mum or don't have a mum that will talk about that kind of thing. There's a lot of conservatives that just like, I refuse.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can be that person. Now, I want to finish on Heat.
Yes.
Started it last night on Channel 10.
Yes.
4-part miniseries starring Pia Miranda and your son.
Danny Dyer.
Yes.
And of course, most importantly, my son.
Most importantly,
Hunter Hayden.
What an actor's name. Did you
yes,
know when you had that named him?
100%. I named him and I said he will be a superstar because that is a superstar's name.
He's very good. I only watched the first episode and he just ratted out the kids having a root in the bloody shed.
Well, keep watching. Keep watching.
Okay, all right. Because you said that the twists and turns.
It's just mind-blowing. It is such a great series, great acting, great writing, fabulous story, really good.
Oh, that's so good because we just had Pia on and I said to her, I'm really kind of spewing that Channel 10 haven't sent me screeners of this, and they never did. So I'm watching it like an ordinary
At least
person
you're
and not a
watching it all together, though. The worst
Yeah.
bit is something
That's
like
why I
this. You don't
waited.
want a week apart. You're like, no, all 4. You can watch it on 10, catch up and just binge
That's why I
the 4
waited.
episodes. And it's just
But I do
so
love a
addictive.
screener because there's no ads.
Yeah.
You know, with 10 Play, they just all of a sudden you're going into another scene and then it stops and gives you an ad and it's the same ad. Who cares? Sales is important.
First world problems.
Yes,
Hey?
so first world. But what else has he done?
That's his first really big thing.
Okay.
So, he's... I think
How old's he?
He has just turned 19.
19.
Yeah, so he's also
What a
at
future.
uni doing an international business degree. So he's smart, and
smart
gorgeous
boy.
and
Smart man.
Yes, he's my boy. He'll always be my boy.
Yeah, and is he a little feminist? Like, have you raised him in that realm?
He's a pretty awesome human. He is Chloe's. He's in charge of all of her merch. He's the merch manager, so he follows
that's
her around
his
at conferences
business brain.
and stuff. So he helps her manage all her merch. She's got an incredible merch business. So he follows us around at conferences and sells all the merch and does everything online for that. So he and Chloe are really close. It's beautiful. I think he's going to kill it in the acting world as well. I think now that Heat's been out, there's a few kind of other things in the pipeline. So watch this space. But he's got his business degree. He's not even ever been like I just want to be a famous actor. He loves acting. He's he loves acting. He's just, really good at his craft and enjoys it. But he's not fussed whether he sort of, becomes famous with it or not.
How did they both get into acting?
I think a little bit because I dabbled in acting, when I was younger.
Yep. What did you do?
Oh, I did so much stuff. Like in the time when, it's funny because Hunter got the role of Heat. He'd had a couple of really big auditions during Year 12.
Yeah.
Which was last year.
Yeah.
And I'd been saying to him, I bet you're going to get your massive breakout lead role right at your Year 12 exams. Sure enough, a few weeks before Year 12 exams started, his agent called us and said, Hunter's got, a lead role in this huge series, Heat. Danny Dyer's flying over from the UK's Left East Enders to come over and do this series and everything. Filming starts Year 12 exams. No. So all of the filming was during the entire Year 12 exam period.
So he did both.
And he was like, and a few people were like, he can't possibly, he's just going to have to say no. And I was like, hell no. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. He's been acting for years and loved it. And we kind of knew it was going to happen. And the reason why I wasn't bothered by it, I was the youngest ever Miss Universe Australia finalist at the age of 17. And I flew to Sydney by myself from Melbourne to represent Australia in the Miss Universe finals in Sydney. And I had to do all my Year 12 exams from a hotel room in Sydney with a nominated examiner who would come into my room. So I'd be sitting there in my little sparkly Miss Universe bikini, run in, put a gown on, sit there and do an exam and then go back and do it. So I did pretty much the exact same experience, which was mind-blowing. But I was also like, who cares?
Can do it.
You can do it. And in some ways, I actually think it's almost better because you're not focused. I hate Year 12 exams. I think they're horrendous.
Yeah.
And, who cares really? It doesn't define your life.
That's right.
And it's
so
almost good for kids to have
that distraction.
a distraction. And so Hunter was saying, they were filming in Warrandyte and the Nunawading Channel 10 studios, the old Neighbours studios. He would drive back down the freeway to Geelong, go to school, do his exam. And he said the whole way driving, he'd be like remembering his lines for Heat that he had to do that afternoon, walk in, do his exam, hop out. and he smashed them, did really well, got his first option of, international business at Deakin Uni and loved it. And, it's opened up further opportunities. So I wasn't fussed at all about it. I thought it was exciting and great, and what an awesome story. Here I am telling my same story, over 30 years later from me.
Yeah.
So that sort of led for me. I did a bit of acting and a bit of modelling. I was doing all the, Neighbours and Kath and Kim and Full Frontal and Fast Forward. I just had little bits and pieces of jobs. And then I had a couple of do you remember the movie Sirens that Elle McPherson, Portia de Rossi and Kate Fisher. Before she changed her name, Sephora, yeah.
Yes.
I was
Hugh Grant.
And Hugh Grant. It was me and Portia de Rossi were the last two for I've still got the whole script at home.
Oh my God.
So we were going in over and over for.
So you could have been with Ellen by now.
I could have been married to Ellen DeGeneres. God, how my life would have changed. Thank God I didn't get.
Her name is like Fiona Rogers or something Rogers. That's her real name, Portia de Rossi.
Yeah, that's right. Something really,
something
not quite
Rogers.
as fancy as
like, yeah.
So anyway, I'd sort of had, but funnily enough, it was about that time I was actually diagnosed with really severe endometriosis.
Right.
And told I'd never have kids. And
hold my beer.
Yeah,
literally. Your uterus.
Sit down. Yes, exactly right. Sit down, bitches. So I don't tell me what I can't do. All right. So I just met my now husband. We wanted kids more than anything, and I actually put all that aside and decided to start a treatment. I did a 12-month treatment with Chinese medicine and specialist doctors and stuff in the hope that I would be able to get pregnant, because they said that most, your best chances are to do it now, because the older you get and the more you've got, endo, and the longer you've got it, the more you're just not going to have kids. So I went on to have, not long after all of that, I actually got pregnant really young with Chloe. Thank you, God. It was amazing. And just sort of ended up never really going back. In my 30s, I went back to, mature modelling. For a few years, I was doing, quite a bit of bits and pieces and loved it. So, if anyone wants a 50-year-old woman in a role, would love to go back to acting.
Good.
So I'd sort of always dabbled in it. So the kids knew that and sort of thought it was a bit cool. But they just, I never pushed them at all. But for Chloe, since she was really young, she loved acting, and she talks now about, she loved the fact she had a script and she could, socialise with people. And it was her, she talks a lot about it in her books and conferences, that for her, she actually felt more comfortable and more herself on stage. Like I'd see this kid that would hardly talk, get up and do these incredible monologues and acting. She just had a gift for acting. Yeah. And she says it's because she, had the script and she knew what to say, and she could, someone to tell her, and she's like, it's okay, I know what to say, because in real life I don't know what to say.
Yes.
And so
it's like kids who sing.
Yes. People who stutter, who get up and sing. Yeah. Yep. So, we got her in acting classes partly to sort of get her out of her shell. And Hunter was a really shy, quiet little boy, but also loved acting. He and Chloe would always do things in their room together. If you get on YouTube, there's old videos of the two of them singing and acting and stuff. And it was like, so we got him into acting classes, and, the acting teacher was like, he's got a real gift. He's really good at doing it. And so thankfully, Chloe's wonderful agent picked up Hunter as well. And, so he's that was sort of his first big breakout role. So watch this space. So, funnily enough, now my stuff just fades into comparison to what they've done, and now I'm,
Well, I don't think it fades into anything, but I can see, I just see three incredible people, and there's probably a lot more incredible people in your house to come, or have already done incredible things that we just happen to not know about. Thank you so much for coming on.
It has been so wonderful.
You're just such a fascinating woman you are.
Thank you.
I've really enjoyed this chat. If you have enjoyed this chat, please tell people to listen to it, because it's just, there's so much information in this one that is really going to help a lot of people. Please rate, review, subscribe. 5 stars only, of course. If you've got any questions or anything, you can always email me. And remember, I do my female every solo episode. So that's 2girls@novapodcasts.com.au. I will be on my solo ep on Tuesday. I don't know why my voice does that, but I like it. It's kind of Simpson-esque. Sexy Simpson-esque. Thank you again, Sarah Hayden. Where can we find you on the socials? What's your handles?
Mama Sladen.
That's it.
Another
Are
word
you
that's been
public
given
or
to
private?
me, but no, public, absolutely.
Good.
Yeah, Mama Sladen.
You've got to be. Let people see you.
It was going to be glitter tits, but we thought maybe not. So
you can change it to glitter tits at any time.
But Mama Sladen was actually one of Chloe's fans started calling me Mama Sladen because I'm
so
Hayden
good.
and Mum, and I just went, you know what, that's actually so cool. So I've just become.
How many followers do you have
Mama
so
Sladen.
far?
You know what, I'm brand new to. The kids for years have been like, get on Insta.
Yeah.
I've not long started it. So yeah, not many, but look me up and make me popular.
Yeah, Chloe put up on her Instagram the other day with the little bimini.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, it's so sweet. I wonder how many followers she went over, and my mouth dropped. I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like, that's an audience that's just, like, I didn't know. I never look at the numbers for people, but then I go all of a sudden, how many followers do you have? Like, is this something I should be more interested in? Anyway, we're talking again. Let's go and have lunch.
Let's.
Bye, everyone. I love you.